There is a lot going on right now in the sport of wrestling. We've got everything from cancellations to trials to RTC cards and more. And today I want to talk about some of those topics and bring on some guests that are directly in the center of the conversation. This includes Yanni Diakomihalis, Bo Nickal, and Anthony Ashnault, who all joined me on the show today to talk about different current events. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Overcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure to subscribe to Baschamania. And if you enjoy this episode, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts.
It's Baschamania! Let me tell you something, brother. He gave us everything he had in him tonight. What you gonna do when Baschamania runs wild on you? Oh, it's gonna be a good one. And business just picked up here on the podcast. Oh, yeah.
So yesterday, the Ivy League announced they were canceling winter sports, which obviously includes wrestling. Arguably the biggest name in wrestling in the Ivy Leagues is Yanni Diakomihalis. So I was curious at what his perspective and reaction is to this news. Without further ado, Yanni D, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. The last time you were on here, we were talking about the Olympic trials being postponed. And now we got to bring you on sometimes when there's good stuff to talk about. But, yesterday it was announced that the Ivy League is canceling all winter sports. And, I think you're one of the names that everybody instantly thinks about. And there's so many reactions. So I wanted to bring you in to talk about it. What was your reaction when you saw it? Was this something you guys knew was potentially coming?
Yeah, it was like we were optimistic, but you could definitely tell just the way things were developing, hearing kind of through the grapevine what people were saying, you could tell that, it was probably going to be done. I mean, we were definitely optimistic. All of our guys were training like we were going to have a season. We were pretty deep into our preseason, but I don't know. It wasn't a total shock. And you just kind of know how these things go with the Ivy League sometimes.
And from a mental standpoint, you've endured so much over the past year between cancellations, delayed wrestle-offs. You've endured so much, and I know you well, so I know how much you love this sport. Where are you at mentally right now with – I know there's got to be people listening that's saying, man, this Yanni's been through a lot. Where are you right now mentally with everything?
Yeah, I mean, that stuff's frustrating, but I'm a big believer in never letting things deter you. Kind of just keep a straight look on your face. You do what you need to do. If things aren't going the way that you want them to, doesn't matter, right? Because the world doesn't feel sorry for you. People might feel sorry for me. People might feel sorry for the guys, but in the end, life goes on. They might feel sorry for 10 minutes and that's the end of it, right? So yeah. I don't think that there's any reason that, things happen. Unfortunate things happen all the time, but they should never deter you because in the end, I believe that being deterred is a sign of weakness. It's just something that you need to improve on. And that's kind of how I try to view myself too.
And I believe you posted yesterday that it's time for another Olympic red shirt. Is that the plan? Is that what the plan has been? Kind of the backup plan of, hey, if there's not a season? Because there's been the ups and downs where the NCAA came out and said, for those who compete this year, it won't count as a year of eligibility. And I had teased it out so Yanni could be a 5-time champ, and now again, it's a different swing, but what has this been the backup plan? Okay, there might not be a season, so let's plan that route too.
Yeah, we were always ready. I already talked to my compliance officer about the potential for getting another redshirt year. And so we kind of had everything planned so that if I was good to go, I was ready to come back and get going. And if it wasn't, everything had been set up for me to take that redshirt. So we definitely were planning ahead and kind of preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, So there was I was equally prepared for either outcome. So I'm glad, we did a good job of not letting it catch us off guard.
Yeah, and when I posted on the Baschamania Instagram yesterday about the news, the comments lit up with time to transfer out, time to transfer out, time to transfer out. Now, I know how loyal you are took Cornell growing up in New York, Finger Lakes. So I don't see you transferring out. But I'm curious your thoughts on the notion, and I'm sure wondering, and I don't know what you're hearing about, do you think kids will potentially transfer so they can compete this year? It's like Big Ten's playing football. It's looking like they're going to wrestle. So if that's the case, do you think people are going to start transferring out to their schools?
I mean, I think you'll see a big wave of guys who wrestled in Ivy Leagues that are going to wrestle at grad school somewhere else. Like we have a guy who actually talked to our coaches because he wants to go to grad school, right? And was like, hey, like, some wrestling programs that maybe I could go to. And just because I get it. It's like you don't want to lose your opportunity if you had it. But I don't know about transferring, only because I think a big pull factor, right, for these kids that are, I mean, especially for me, I know, and like guys on our team, that the reason they're here is because it's such a high level education.
Yeah.
You don't want to give that up for one season, right? Especially when you have opportunities to wrestle for grad school somewhere else, or you have an opportunity to get, I mean, like a degree from Cornell is a really big deal if you're trying to do something outside of wrestling with your life, you know what I mean? And so I think it means a lot I know it does for our guys, like graduating from here, is part of the reason that they're at Cornell, you know what I mean? Like the institution means something. So I don't know about transferring, but I'm pretty confident a lot of our guys are going to stay.
Yeah, I would think so. It'd be one thing if you, and it goes back to the loyalty thing, and I don't think you'd have people transferring out for 1 year and transfer back. But even if that was a possibility, it's still, there's a loyalty factor there. And I don't know, like you said, this isn't like you're going to a standard college. Not that there's anything wrong with a lot of these educations. But like you said, the Ivy League, you're going predominantly because of that education. And I know from our conversations in the past how much that has meant to you to be in the Ivy League. Do you think that, and you're kind of different because with the Olympic red shirt, not everybody's going to qualify for that. Do you think maybe other schools, have you heard from anybody anything about transfers?
Not a ton. I mean, I think generally outside of the Ivy League, everyone else is kind of in the same boat where they're all in limbo, right? Kind of like where we were before yesterday, where it's like, are we good to go? We're going to act like we are, but maybe we aren't. So the only thing I'll say, I mean, I'm a big fan of, you got to stick with who got you there. And I mean, I get it. Some people need to transfer for whatever reason, but if there's nothing wrong, I don't think you should just leave your school because someone else might be able to do one thing better for you for 1 year, right? But I mean, I know I'm not one to, I wouldn't pass judgment on someone else if they did.
Yeah. No,
but I think really the only thing is it feels like a lateral move because maybe you go from the Big 12 to the Big 10 where maybe the Big 10's 5% more likely to compete, but are you really willing to transfer for the 5% increase of chance that you might wrestle? Because it could end up being like we're the first domino and everyone else drops. Or I could be totally wrong and we go out, everyone else has a season and just there was no Ivy League that year. So I think there's a lot of subjectivity, right? Like I don't really know how much everyone else.
And I predominantly ask only because, those are the comments. So that's what the average fan is thinking about instantly. So I wanted to give you a place to talk about that. Another important factor, you tweeted it yesterday about you're heartbreaking for the seniors. Here they lost their NCAA's season last year, and now they're done. What is the vibe like around those seniors who now don't get to compete?
I mean, one thing I really appreciate about our guys is that, they took it on the chin. Like they're as strong-willed as it gets. I mean, some of these guys, like, I don't know, even if they weren't ultra successful, it was like you planned on having this last wrestling season. And even if you were going to be a backup, it's just like being a part of the team. It's your last year of doing this before you have to, like, it's your last year of being a part of a wrestling team. You know what I mean? Like, it's the end of it for them. So I think it's hard, but they did a really good job. You know what I mean? Everyone handled it well. I mean, obviously people are going to be upset, but our guys are tough dudes. So, and they understand that it's kind of something you can't control.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the possibility where the Ivy League could be the only league not to participate. But then, in my perspective, you're a reigning 2-time NCAA champion. If you're not there and other guys aren't there, it's almost like there's an asterisk on the season, and it becomes an issue where it's like, is there going to be a asterisk next to the season? And we don't know how it's going to play out. Some conferences might cancel, some not. We don't even know if there's going to be NCAAs. We saw that with the World Championships. They thought they were going to have them. Then there wasn't enough participation. So now they're going to have a World Championships Cup or a World Cup or something. But do you think that there's definitely going to be an asterisk next to the season if it does take place for some conferences?
I mean, honestly, it depends. If it's just us and it runs through, then those national champs are definitely going to be really good guys, right? But as more and more programs come out, and I'm not saying that they will, but if they do continue to drop out and the field gets lighter and lighter, I mean, I would never say you put an asterisk, because you can't blame a guy for beating whoever you put in front of him. It's not his fault that the other guys weren't there, right? But as more schools drop, you have to worry more about the probability of having a season than actually what you call the guy who won the NCAA tournament that year, because I don't know, like I said, if I go to the NCAA tournament and there's only 10 other guys there, like, that's not on me. I still showed up.
Well, that was the Pat Downey argument last year. Everybody got mad at Pat for being excited about making the national team. And a lot of people are like, well, it's only because David Taylor wasn't there and Bo went up. And that was the general sense of like, well, not for nothing. You can't get mad at Pat that.
I mean, it's not, he's done other things, but it's like, it's not his
correct.
fault.
Right.
It's not his fault that he won the world trials and then David just couldn't wrestle. Like, that's just what happened. I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, and it's like, I don't know. It doesn't make it, I mean, it's like you didn't beat everyone who was there. You beat everyone who was there. You just maybe didn't beat everyone who could have been there. But
right, and that's why it's always an interesting conversation. And that's the only thing with Pat Downey. The only really thing I'm referencing is that the one factor of he did beat who showed up. And it's going to be a conversation that I think is going to unfold over the next couple of months if there's an NCAAs, if there's not. Going back real quick to the World Championships, I know you expressed frustration in that. Have you thought about that more, the World Championships and not having it? What was that up and down like, kind of getting ready? I know you kind of stay ready, but I know there's a difference when you're getting ready for a World Championships or a team trial or something like that. What was that like?
To be honest, the biggest frustration on my end, I just felt like we were kind of in the dark. It was like we had this survey, and I was in touch with Mike Macchiavella, who was one of our athlete reps.
Yeah.
But even he was like, there's a lot of stuff going on that not like he didn't know about, but maybe he just wasn't included on. And I think he was just frustrated by it. And then kind of after that decision, I was like, well, because I remember in the past they told us we all got these athlete surveys, right? And it was like they gave them to everyone who placed in the senior nationals that happened in October and everyone who was on the national team. And it was just frustrating because then it felt like, well, just because this guy doesn't want to go, I can't go. It's like, you can not go and I'll just go wrestle instead. But, I mean, I don't know. There were other things that got introduced to me. People brought up to me after the fact that I guess cleared it up a little bit. So it helped, talking to people like I know Jenna Burgert, who was she was a world team member for the Army. She was telling me some stuff that she heard from another call from someone else that helped clear it up a little bit. But there was definitely an initial bit of frustration because it felt like it was taken away from me because other people just didn't want to go, which I didn't agree with. But
yeah, and that's one of the questions that I asked on the media call was the two questions I thought were good questions. One I thought I asked was, why wouldn't you send someone if they want to go, if they want to risk it? And, they basically made the decision that, hey, if we can't send everyone, we're not letting anybody go, which I kind of disagree with. And the other question that was asked that was kind of interesting was, okay, so what about the Urigan? What about the Dan Koloff? What about the other tournaments that are in Russia, Italy, France? They're all overseas. So what about those? And nobody knows right now what's going to happen.
A lot of stuff up in the air, which is kind of why Flo has stepped into this limelight doing all these cards, because I think it's the first time in a long time where everyone's just kind of like, I need to wrestle matches. Usually there's so many tournaments. You're like, oh, I'll go to the next one. But that opportunity isn't there anymore, which I think is why they've been doing so well with these events.
Yeah. Have you been in talks with any of the cards? I know Mike was telling me when he was just on here that Spartan Combat is going to do one potentially in January. But have you been in talks with any of these other cards to try to get something in the going for you?
Yeah, there's something being set up. I'm pretty sure I can't tell you what it is yet, but you will hear about it. There's something coming up very soon that
Okay.
I think it'll be really exciting. I think it'll be I can say with confidence that there's probably been nothing like it before. So I think it'll be really exciting.
Okay, very cool. I like that. And the last thing I want to talk to you about briefly is your focus right now when you have NCAA's canceled, you have the Olympic trials canceled, you have the World Championships potentially scheduled and then canceled. Now you have your season taken away. All your focus right now is Olympics 2021. What is your focus and how optimistic are you that, when you've been training so hard for the last, let's say, 8 months with kind of things keep being taken from you, what's the focus from here to the Olympics? Now that the NCAA season is gone, it's Olympic redshirt time again. What's your focus now through the trials and through the Olympics?
I mean, just continuing to get better and talking about things getting canceled. It's like I can only control what I can control. So it's like I should never let things that are out of my immediate grasp deter me, right? So all right, this gets canceled. Nah, that sucks. All right, on to the next, right? Because there's no reason to be upset about stuff if I can't change it. You know what I mean? And you just have to reflect, learn, what can I change if it's just something happened. It's like, all right, well, that sucks. On to the next. You know what I mean? So just focusing on getting better and being as prepared as I can possibly be when the trials and the Olympic Games come. And, just whatever happens. I have to be ready to go to war. So.
Is it hard the next day after something? Like, I know for me, my routine kind of helps me. If something bad happens the next day, I'm kind of back in the grind because of my routine. I stay in it. Is that what helps you? Like, I assume with you, there's not a lack of that grit and desire, even after bad news. Like you're telling me today, you got matches going. Doesn't matter. Your season was taken away yesterday. You're out there today competing just as hard as ever in practice. Is that something you've grown accustomed to? Just no matter what happens, staying in that with that like grit attitude?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a big believer in how your psychology can affect you. And I just think that if you're going to let a negative event affect you, then it's doubling down, right? Because now it's like, I already lost something. Whatever happened, I already lost my season. Yeah. Now I'm going to let the loss of my season take away a day of practice, which could cause me to lose another thing. So it's like, why am I going to let a negative event contribute to more negativity when I could take that negative event and be like, well, watch this and do something better with it, right? And I think that, not everyone views it that way, and some people would probably disagree with me, but I don't believe in sulking when bad things happen. Like, they happened, and it's really sad. And obviously people need, when I'm talking wrestling, this is wrestling. Yep. It's not important stuff. I lost my season. That sucks. It's terrible. Especially if you're a senior, it's like, well, what do you do now? Life goes on, so you have to just continue on with it. And it's something I had to learn. I had a hard time when I got beat out of the world team spot. And it was just kind of like the world. I'm sitting on my couch watching the World Championships right now. The world does not care one bit that I'm not there. So it's like, why should I take more than 10 seconds to be upset by it?
I like the perspective that, if something negative happens, why are you going to let it hinder something else? And that was really a really good point that a lot of people listening should take account of. If that negativity from yesterday affects your practice today, that could affect, everybody in wrestling knows how small of the details that go into your training and routine and process affect the final outcome. And if you do let that take away from today or all of next week's practice or whatever it is, it might impact your future. And that's not doing yourself a service by robbing yourself of that. I like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just big on good or bad, put it behind you and keep going.
Yeah. All right. Well, Yanni D, thank you for taking some time this morning. I'm sure we'll chat soon. We got to get you on here with something really positive soon. So the next time something like really good happens, just text me.
Hopefully I'm talking to a post-Olympic team. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, listen, after this announcement that you're telling me we're going to hear about something soon, That's hopefully exciting. So might even be sooner than the Olympics.
Something. Flo's got something in the works. Flo,
Well,
USA Wrestling.
I don't know if it's tied though, but I did see that Flo tweeted out yesterday that they're making 2 big announcements Saturday during the Burroughs event. So I don't know if they're tied.
Based on the timing, could be that one. But I'm
Okay. All right, guys. Make sure you tune in. Make
Tune
sure
in.
you're following Yianni. Pay attention. All right, man. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you. All right, so next up, it was announced this morning that Anthony Ashnault is wrestling Austin O'Connor at a Tar Heel Wrestling Club event called the Tar Heel Wrestling Club Open, I believe. He also recently launched Mobbin Media. He's competing in a Flo Wrestling 8-man bracket challenge in December. He's got a lot going on. Anthony Ashnault, how are you, man? Happy to see you, Mobbin, back on the podcast.
What's good? Schnaulty be mobbing here. How we doing?
Good. We're both taking a break from the Flo Rockfin trial, which is what I'm calling it because, as somebody alluded to yesterday, this isn't about Willie. This is about Flo versus Martin and whatever. But needless to say, how are you, man? What have you been up to?
I'm doing well, man. I've been up to a lot, bro. I've been well, this week I've been watching the trials, like you're saying, keeping up with this the debates, I guess, or just going back and forth both sides of that trial with Willie, with Rockfin, and going at Flo Sports and Flo Wrestling, and Christian Piles on the stand yesterday. It was fun for me as a wrestling fan, honestly, to see this behind the scenes combos and
Dude, I love it. I was telling my wife, she's like, why do you love this so much? I'm like, first of all, I like crime and documentaries and court stuff, so I like it. But as a wrestling guy, when everybody saw Willie quit in real time last year, and you saw things unfold. Now to see the behind the scenes of it all unfolding, it's like, I want nothing but the best for Rockfin and nothing but the best for Flo. But if this is on, I'm watching all day.
100%. And then they throw text messages in there, and you're like, I swear I read Ironman's name in the one text message. I was like, what are they talking about Ironman behind the scenes?
I saw Piles say something. I saw that Piles that's really what's Rudis something about?
Rudis blew it, and then he was like Ironman. I was like, what?
Was Ironman going to go to Rudis?
I was trying to put the timeline together. I was like, wait, okay.
Dude, I'm trying to pause stuff in real time. This guy's talking about a yacht company, and this guy's talking about that. I'm like, man, I'd be mad. I'm glad I saw a mutual friend of ours on there, and I texted him, and I'm like, just so you know, this was up there. But, the reason I was texting you this morning was it's down as the time of recording this, but I reshared it when it was live that December 4th, Tar Heel Wrestling Club is doing an event, which I kind of knew was coming. I asked Tony about it when he was in the podcast most recently, and he didn't mention it exclusively, but I knew it was coming. And the first match they announced, which I think is a great one, you and Austin O'Connor. I was kind of surprised to see your name. I'm really glad you are, but with the event on 12/18, I love seeing that you're getting a little warm up in. What led to you taking this match with Austin?
Kind of that thought. I was I'm gearing up, getting ready for this 12/18 date, and we're treating it almost like it's like a UFC date circled on the calendar. We're getting ready, we're training mostly around my skills and what I'm working on and what I'm getting better on for this event on 12/18. With 6 of the 8 competitors already agreed, we kind of know what we're getting into, and it's exciting, man. It's every day's think I'm driving to work, driving to these workouts, and I'm picturing Jordan Oliver's motion standing in front of me and what I'm going to do to him and how I'm going to score on him, how I'm going to attack him. How I'm going to take out another cowboy. But it started just leading to getting super prepared and going through wrestling workouts, lifts, and cardio workouts. And I was just feeling like I wanted to get something under my belt, get a match in and feel good about winning this tournament on 12/18. And by no means is this a warm-up match, but that was kind of the thought process. Let's get a match in and get ready to go, and we'll have 2 more weeks to kind of adjust and see what's good, see where I'm at. Maybe I got to tailor some things differently, or maybe everything's going great and we continue the process for 2 more weeks and get ready for the Flo Wrestling match. And
and I use I use warm up very loosely. Austin
Yeah.
O'Connor's a stud. I don't mean like it's a practice for you, but I mean in the context of you competing a little bit
No,
while
for sure.
later.
For
This
sure.
is definitely that tune up to say, like you said, where am I? Like, I got to give a lot of credit to Flo for putting real money on the line for you to walk away with. That's reason enough to say, hey, before this event, I want to go compete. And I'm sure you're hopefully making a little bit of money on that card. And it's like, hey, 2 paydays in December? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And on top of it, man, I'm at the point in my career, I want to be healthy and I want to be wrestling often and building on my legacy as a wrestler, as a human being. I want to give back to the sport, and to give back at my level is to compete and to show out, not just to go win, not to just go lose, but to carry like my name on my chest and represent what I represent, and to show maybe future generations, and especially during COVID when kids all ages are wrestling on cards and wrestling in special events, like kind of be the role model for those kind of kids that are looking at me in these events. And I want to be the kind of person, like Burrow said in his upcoming match about Flo, like he wants to be the guy when he's older that kids are like, my favorite wrestler is Jordan Burroughs, and he's 70 years old sitting up in the bleachers. And like, that's not my goal, but I want to be a face and a vision for these younger kids looking like I want to wrestle often. I want to wrestle at the highest level. I want to win world championships, Olympic championships, but I also want to be on not as many cards as I can, the ones that make sense. Like this one makes sense. Like we're saying, getting ready for the Flow Wrestling event, which is a huge little like mini U.S. trials. Hopefully we get some international guys in the last 2 spots, but it's just getting ready for that, as well as getting my name on these cards and being someone that's wrestling often at a high level.
Yeah, it's one thing that's very interesting. When I had Cal on the podcast a couple weeks ago, I brought that up. Like, you know, what I told him was a couple of years ago, let's say this is 2015, 2016, you didn't see any Penn State guys at senior nationals this year. 2015, 2016, you see them all because you don't have the option. If you want to get a match in, you're going to senior nationals, you're risking the quarantine, you're risking this, you're risking that. Now you've kind of got some options, and it's going to get interesting because it's who wants to wrestle who. And I think it's going to get really interesting as more and more RTCs and clubs start throwing their hat into the ring, and everybody's going to want to start wrestling on home turf, right? Like, I know Gilman and Lee, everybody wants to see that. Well, and I know Gilman is an absolute savage. He'll go anywhere, but I kind of got the sense like everybody right now wants to be on their home turf. Lee doesn't shy away from competition. Spencer is one of the best in the world. But I got the sense of he's like, well, I want to wrestle in Iowa, and Gilman's, I want to wrestle in Penn State now. And it seems like, and I could be wrong, but it seems like you're going to start seeing a trend where guys want to wrestle at home. If all of a sudden you guys are throwing an event down in Jersey, it might be like, I'm not taking that match with Austin because I want to wrestle someone here, and
definitely.
you're kind of seeing that with the Wisconsin card. There's not as many big names. Awesome headline with Gross and Meredith, but there's not as many big names because if the club doesn't have them, like Iowa and Penn State, it gets harder. But the entire landscape is shifting right now, and it's awesome to see people innovate and to watch that change. And I got to imagine as an athlete, you're kind of sitting there like constantly reevaluating based on the circumstance. Hey, coach, are we going to do an event? Hey, what's this? What's the Olympic trials going on? Ivy League's canceled. Like everything just comes into play to some degree. And it's something like you've never dealt with before.
Yeah. It's a different landscape. Like, to go on what you're saying, it's a different landscape. These kids that are 12 years old, maybe 10, 11 years old, just getting to middle school, taking wrestling seriously through high school, they're starting to see it, and they want to wrestle in events like that. You see more and more kids going to not just the big national tournament, Fargo, in the summertime. You see them going to every single big event all year long. Super 32, the next weekend, Elite 8 duels. Like this weekend, like I'm putting together a high-level high school event, like with some of the studs that wrestled in Super 32, won and Elite 8. Like these kids are wrestling every single weekend, and they're only going to be primed to it when they're my age, when it's time. Maybe the landscape changes in the next 8 years to kind of the platform we see now, where RTCs and different promotions and everything really working together, or not working together, just kind of working on their own, trying to put on their own events. It could be maybe become a thing where what I see it going towards, if this is the trend, you got UFC, you got Bellator, you got one championships. We might have a thing where it's wrestling, like different different promotions doing their own thing, having their own kind of series of events or whatever it may be. Maybe it takes away from what the world championships and Olympic championships are looked at, because there's not as much money except from your own federations in those. And I'm a little bit opposed to it, but I think it's good to have a little mix. Like I think the premier accomplishment as a wrestler is being a world champ, being an Olympic champ. And I don't think we get rid of that platform. But I think we learn from what boxing has done, what UFC and MMA has done, and what these other combat sports are doing. Flow grappling's blowing up, one of the fastest growing platforms. And I think we have to learn from these other promotions and platforms and take what's good and try to filter out what we already have that is good and kind of blend them together.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and I want to bring that up because I know you launched Mobbin Media, and I saw you have a 4-man bracket event. I see you have a lot going on, and I saw even some back and forth with, I can't remember if it was Sam Herring or someone, about kids' rankings, and you're doing a lot of work on the youth level. I'm curious what got you into wanting to do all that.
Well, I was working with a ton of youth since college, since probably my junior year of college. I started working heavily, giving private lessons, running camps, going across the country. And then it got to the point where I was like, I don't want to really do a bunch of these clinics across the country, one-hitters anymore. I want to work with groups of kids. So then I started kind of picking and choosing the kids I wanted to work with and developing, and the different practices that I was going to stay consistent. The best thing in Jersey is there's like actually probably 30 to 40 clubs across New Jersey. So you could go anywhere and have workouts, but it was more like simplifying it to 1 or 2 places I wanted to train kids out of or associate myself with. And then I started having to deal with different injuries from just competing and maybe not having a great system for my training, or the best system I could possibly have to stay injury free or whatever it may be. I was dealing with injuries, which feel like they were kind of back to back in 2 years. And I'm just coming back from another one. Recently I had a procedure done in August, and I'm coming back now, and my first match will be December 4th. And the main focus of shifting things more to Mobbin Media and creating that platform for myself was to get out of the scene where I felt like I could still give back to the youth and fulfill that and have opportunities to go maybe run a practice on a Saturday or be involved in a whole Saturday event without 2 times a week using my actual body and my actual energy, which was taken away from who I want to be as an Olympic champ and a world champion. And I have that potential, and I'm taken away from it every time that I chip into my body. Like I'm chipping in to my body by being on my feet an extra 3 hours a day for no reason, or extra 4 hours sometimes teaching and going through the motions of what wrestling is. And I'm the kind of person that, like, I'm all in or I'm not in at all. So it's like when I'm going to teach a practice, I'm getting another workout and I'm sweating. If it's a high school kid around my weight, I'm messing around, grabbing them. When it's time to go live, I'm wrestling with everybody. I like to give back in the best way I possibly can. I go all out in that. So for me, the transition to Mobbin Media was really to take the toll off my body and be able to wrestle as long as I possibly can, compete for as many world and Olympic titles as I can, and start being able to wrestle consistently now that we have all these cards and all these opportunities to wrestle. And what Mobbin Media is it's a platform on rockfin.com that we really focus on youth and high school wrestling through youth rankings, youth athletes, following them at tournaments, hosting youth events such as the one we're hosting this weekend, like we're talking about, and as well as following my own career. So there's like different things like articles I write or little highlights of my day through a vlog, or highlights of my workout with me talking over them. And we're only going to get better and better and better. and we're making a little bit of money, which is nice. So we could put it back into it and get nicer cameras and maybe hire a college kid that's better than me at it and get them to edit some things. And, you know, it's also a passion, not a passion, but a hobby of mine. Like I enjoy going through the film and I enjoy being around wrestling constantly and talking wrestling and calling coaches and talking to my buddy about wrestling. So it's also a hobby and it goes hand in hand of making me a better wrestler.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I feel like some people would probably look at it black and white and say, "Oh, he's creating Mobbin Media. He's doing all this. It's going to be a distraction." But listening to you break it down, it's actually the opposite. You're actually trying to channel energy into something that is not only long-standing, but it's also going to let you focus more on both without exuding too much energy on one or the other. And that's why it caught my eye. Like, I like this. And you see athletes, it's becoming more and more common. You see what Dave's doing with M2 Training Center. You see what Bo's doing with the American Top Team, the gym. And you're seeing athletes kind of try to create something. And Kale and I talked about that on the podcast. You know, the sport needs to be more self-sustaining. We have to do things. Anybody who's involved in the sport, for me, it's having a podcast and bringing conversations for free to wrestling fans. You know, I think the sport needs more storytelling. It needs the storylines. So for me, that's what I can do. You as an athlete, this is what you can do. Somebody who is maybe just a donor, great, whatever. But I think the more that athletes, coaches, clubs, wrestlers do to help the sport be self-sustaining, like you said, you're making a little bit of money, which is great. You can reinvest it back into the sport. You're not taking it and buying big cigars and just laughing in the sunlight, you know?
No, we're doing things like we're taking the money and we're, instead of running it in the club that's a little beat up and not meant to have a match in it, we're making sure we have COVID guidelines, buying different things to be safe, and we're renting a high school gym and we're getting different cameras to have a live feed with. And like we're putting things back into the youth that we're covering, so then we could expose them in a better way and set them up for their futures and give them opportunities maybe they didn't have. And the greatest part about it is that, you know, like there's a kid that's in the event that I'm not going to throw him out there because I don't want to keep it anonymous, but he's trying to get recruited for college and he's not getting a lot of looks. And it's like, we kind of had the roster set, but he reaches out like, "Hey man, like I'm looking to get some big time matches, a ranked kid in New Jersey." That's the kind of kid we want to help. Like, of course, 100%. We're going to squeeze him in and find him a spot. We're going to make him an edit. We're going to put his matches on Rockfin. And those are the things, maybe he gets picked up from a college. Like, we don't want to compete with Flow Wrestling. We don't want to compete with track wrestling.
You don't want to go against Karen.
Not just that. Like, that's not what we're doing. For me, like, yeah, money's awesome. Making money's cool, but that's not the goal. Like, we're here to give back. We're here to serve. So to be able to reinvest those things and be able to see it and have like stories like that, and we're only a month in, like that feels good. And we're trying to make an impact in a large way. So we're gonna keep on keeping on.
And wrestling needs more of that. It really does. You know, and that's why I've always been convicted with this podcast to have as many faith conversations as I can, because I think there's a lacking of that in the sport. I want to bring more marketing and business conversations. You know, I love what that Stalemates kid, I think his name is Zach. I love what he's doing, where he's doing something unique. I love that. I don't care what you think of the content. I think it's great. But I'm saying, irregardless of what you think of the content, he's doing something unique. That's what the sport needs more of, and needs more people doing stuff that's unique to them, instead of just seeing somebody do something and say, "Oh, I want to do that." Because first of all, if you're coming to wrestling to do something just for the money, you're going to lose. There's no money in that. Yeah. But I think it's cool to see different people doing stuff, and I love that wrestling seems to be, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of people copying each other. Maybe for you, somebody might start a podcast and do like 4 episodes and they'll fizzle out if their heart's not in it. And it's not like, I think they realize how hard it is. But I love seeing that. And I love seeing the entrepreneurship of saying, there's got to be something I can do, and making your time and your body more efficient. Like, I didn't think about that before you said that you're spending so much extra time on your feet It's chipping into what your body needs. It's funny. I just had a conversation with Yianni where he was saying, in regards to the Ivy League being canceled, he can't dwell on the negativity from yesterday or it robs him twice. He loses his season, and now he loses the productivity of today. So he has to let it go, because what he does today could be what helps him win an Olympic spot. And similarly, that perspective of, hey, how can I still help out? How can I still contribute to the sport without being on my feet all day, without spending that energy? Kind of, wrestlers don't have to do what it was 20 years ago, which was you did travel the country and do camps and clinics to make a few bucks, because there wasn't the technology that exists today. So
yeah,
I love seeing that, man.
Hey, maybe Yanni wants to get on the 12-18 match now that he doesn't have a season.
Well, he said there's a big announcement coming soon, so I don't know what it is.
But he also, the Spartan Wrestling Club's putting I know they're putting an event together.
January, yeah.
So maybe the announcement's who he's wrestling there. I'm sure he's got a international guy or something.
I don't think it's that. I think the announcement is something else, because he kind of said Flo USA Wrestling. So I don't know if Flo's going to make an announcement Saturday. He said he can't fully disclose it, but the time Flo. I said, I'm like, Mike Gray was just in the podcast, and he brought up the Spartan Combat Wrestling Club doing an event in January, but he goes, basically said it's not.
He said, I don't know. Yeah, like, I would love to have Yanni on there. I mean, my goal is to be the best wrestler I can be. And doing these events are preparation for the Olympic team trials right now. The goal is the Olympic trials. So anybody that's going to be in my weight, for me, it's a win-win. I get to wrestle them probably for the first time. I'm going down to 65 kilograms. And on top of what we're talking about, man, my transition of starting Mobbin Media, and wrestling again and full-time training towards this tournament on 12-18 and 12-4 match against O'Connor, I freaking feel great, bro. I'm in the best spot.
I was just going to ask that, man. I was going to say the last thing I want to ask you here is, one thing that's been on my mind is Seabass and Sebastian being back in Jersey. How has that been?
Dude, I feel great, and I actually got my first real test yesterday. I had to wrestle with him for a whole practice, and I mean, just this week alone, I went with Graf twice and Sebastian yesterday. I mean, I'd say I'm excuse my language. I'd say I'm ready to go.
There's that passion, Jersey.
That's the greatest thing about having Sebastian back home at Rutgers and having Tyler Graf around right now. It's like, I got everything I need, man. With Sebastian back, he's a hammer, and he's big now. He's not a 33-pounder probably ever again.
He's a 65-kilo guy.
Yeah, I would consider everything under 140 pounds out of the picture forever. Just feeling him, man. I went out to Northwestern because we're close, and when he was at school there, and I would train with him and different guys there, and he's a new person. He's thick bass. Man, he's thick everywhere, top to bottom, and he could wrestle, he could scrap. But being able to have him, and that's like a gauge for me, getting to go yesterday, I'm like, I'm ready to go. Let's go. I'll sign that Austin O'Connor match for sure.
I hope they post that back up, because as soon as they shared it, I reshared it. And
no, it's going back up. It's going back up. We talked off air. There's a couple things they're figuring out, and I have a feeling there's going to be a fish swimming around down in Chapel Hill that same day. So,
Lubina. Awesome, man. Well, listen, thank you for taking a few minutes to chat about all this stuff. Everybody listening, go subscribe to Mobbin Media on Rockfin. Go follow Ashnault if you're not already. You need a little Ashnault in your feed. You just need it.
Need a little mozzarella sometimes.
Yeah. All right, man. We'll chat soon.
I appreciate it, man. I need one of those older school sweaters, bro, so I don't ruin the content.
I haven't made these in a while, but this is the first time I'm saying this anywhere publicly. I can't put on Instagram because hopefully my friends don't listen to this podcast because they'll all start texting me. I want to do red stuff. I want to do a red line, and I know you'd like that.
Scarlet?
I want to do a red line, man. Imagine this sweatshirt, but in red.
I like it. Opposite colors.
Yeah, kind of inverting
That
it, do
your
something
logo.
different.
Your
Yep.
logo of the base. I like
Yeah.
it,
Don't worry, we'll send one your way.
bro.
Awesome, man. And finally, in a couple of weeks, Bo Nickal wrestles Nate Jackson. He also just went to Abu Dhabi with Jorge Masvidal. He's got a lot going on. Bo Nickal, how are you, my man?
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man? How are you?
Justin, doing well, man. Good to get back on with you. I'm excited to have a chat real quick.
Yeah, there's a couple quick things that are on my mind that I'm like, all right, it's time for Bo to come back on. I'll start with the landscape of wrestling is changing. And you got a match coming up with Nate Jackson on the NLWC card. And, I'm seeing these matches come out, and some of them I know about, some of them I don't. And I just love the excitement about an individual match. It's almost like a college season with dual events on the senior level. I love seeing it. And we were talking after the last NLWC event of different matches and results, and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit and just get your thoughts on the current landscape of wrestling and what's happening with all these cards.
Yeah, it's definitely something that as a wrestler, super exciting, just to have the opportunity to compete. It's pretty, with the last, 8 months or so being pretty much everything shut down, just the opportunity to compete alone, like that's something that we can be so grateful for. And, as a fan of the sport as well, it's such a cool thing to be able to see a lot of these matches that, we wouldn't have had the chance to otherwise. And, I think it's honestly grown the sport a lot, with the college season being, at minimum postponed. I saw Ivy League, they just canceled their sports, but so we'll see what happens. But, at minimum, I would say the season's going to be postponed. So, with the wrestling community kind of come together and putting on events like this, it's just exciting to keep the sport growing, especially because I feel like the last 3-4 years, it's really picked up a lot of viewership and the sport has grown a lot. So just to try to, keep that rolling is big.
Yeah, for sure. And it's given you the opportunity to be able to get a match. And I guess we'll talk about the match because since, talk about the event. What is your thoughts on the Nate Jackson match coming up?
Yeah, just super excited to compete as always. I was just, looking for a match around this time, looking for somebody to wrestle. And Nate Jackson was one of the first guys that came to mind. He was in the finals at the U.S. Open, and obviously he's a great competitor. We have a decent amount of history. I think this will be our third match, and he did get me once in college. So I'm just excited to have the opportunity to compete out there. And I know he's gonna be ready to go and he's gonna bring it. But I'm just definitely looking to put a lot of points up on the board and kind of just separate myself a little bit from the rest of the guys at the weight. With he's done really well as far as domestic competition goes, and I would like to put a lot of points up on him and just make sure that all the rest of these guys know that I'm kind of on a different level at this point.
Yeah, and I forgot you had that match with him. You were a freshman when you lost to him, right?
Yeah, so he was actually my first loss in college. So I lost to him in a duel. It was a duel at Indiana, and I think he beat me 7-6. So it was a pretty crazy match, but we ended up wrestling later that year at the NCAAs, and we had another really close one. I ended up getting him in the semis at the NCAAs, so we're 1-1 right now, and I'm looking forward to taking the lead in the series. So it's definitely going to be a lot of fun.
And I know people want you to score a lot of points. I was cracking up at your one tweet yesterday when you asked the one person to say please, and they wouldn't.
I know that guy. He was just obviously he was referring to the match with Dieringer. It was 1-1 and not really a ton of scoring. And I was I don't know. He was just basically threatening me that if I don't score, he's not going to buy it. And I'm like, dude, listen, I understand that there's an aspect of entertainment with when you're purchasing something, you obviously want to be entertained. But at the same time, there's a lot of things going against this guy. One, my track record over my entire career. So that pretty much speaks for itself. Two, I don't wrestle and try to do what I do to please the fans. I go smash people because I want to smash people and I want to score a lot of points on them, not because some guy on Twitter told me to. So I just had to troll him a little bit, but yeah, it is what it is. I hope he kind of understood.
I'm sure he does.
That I was
Look
just trolling him a little bit.
I think a lot of these fans don't ever expect a response. It's easy to kind of get drowned out in social, whether it's Twitter or Instagram. And I always think it's funny when someone like you responds to somebody who they're kind of trolling without expecting a response. They're thinking, oh, they're not going to, see this. Or you do a pretty good job of getting people back pretty quick, especially on Instagram too.
Yeah.
I've seen some of those.
Yeah, well, it's just funny to me because like I try to I don't want to get mad and get angry because like there's no point in really wasting energy on that. Yeah. And so to me, it works twofold. One, if somebody's gonna like say something mean, I'm just gonna troll them and just mess with them.
Yep.
Because I'm not just gonna try to fight fire with fire and get angry back at them because that doesn't do anything and it doesn't really make me mad at this point. And two, it's like, all right, bro, let's be real. If you saw me in the street, one, you're never going to say that in a million years. Right. Two, you're probably going to ask for a picture and autograph. So like, I don't get that. So I just figured I'll just troll them back a little bit, and maybe they'll like it, maybe they'll get upset, but I don't really care.
Yeah, and speaking of Instagram, two other things I want to talk to you about quickly are one, definitely the last time you were on here, I believe we were talking about on here, the American Top Team gym you're building in State College. I saw you broke ground on that. Congrats. Just wanted to check in and see how the progress was going on that.
Yeah, it's going really well. I'm super excited. The builders said that it'll be all built out and ready to rock in April. So, the plan originally was to have it built out by the end of this year, but, because of COVID and everything got pushed back. So no worries. It's not really a big deal to me because I'm still competing in wrestling and everything. So it'll be built out in April and ready to rock. So we're going to have coaches there full time and a lot of guys training. And it's definitely, hopefully, my dream for it is in the next 5 years to be one of the top, if not the top gym as far as MMA is concerned in the entire world. So that's kind of where I see it going and what the future holds a little bit.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. I can't remember if it was on the podcast or off, but I mean, Pennsylvania is such a hotbed for wrestling, and wrestling's obviously a hotbed for great MMA athletes.
Yep.
It only makes sense to bring people in from Philly, from New York City, from Jersey, from wherever, and with everything going on at Penn State with the wrestling program, it's the perfect location. And, the other Instagram thing that I wanted to talk about was I need to hear it from you. You've teased out these seasonings. I need to know what is going on, please.
Oh, man. Well, we got something coming. It's going to be big. It's going to be exciting. I've been working with myself and one of my buddies. We're partnering up, and we're going to be creating our own custom blend of seasoning that I'll be specifically tailoring for red meat. And so we've been working on this blend it's going on, I guess, over like almost half a year at this point, just tinkering with it and fiddling with it and making sure it's perfect. So I'm working with the distributor and I'm getting it bottled currently. So they just sent us the final sample, and we're going to get that bottled and distributed. Hopefully, I'm not sure. I'm getting married in December, so I'm not really focusing on it a ton right now, but hopefully, first few months of the new year, we'll have it ready to rock and send out to people. So yeah, I'm super excited about it. And it's a really awesome blend. Like I said, I put a lot of time and effort into it and got it exactly as I wanted it. So basically, yeah, just like for me, that's something that I'm super passionate about, grilling, obviously on the Traeger, stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, I need to create a custom blend that's exactly as I wanted, because what I did before that was I would take a bunch of different things and combine them and kind of make it up myself. And I was like, I just need to do it right and have these all combined into one blend. And, it just made so much sense to be able to share that with others and have other people try it. But I think it's going to be pretty good. So I'm hyped.
Yeah, I can't wait to try it. And I'm curious, you're building this gym, you're working on the seasoning stuff, you're getting married in December, you're training for the Olympic trials. What How is your focus right now divided when you have so much going on to not get distracted by these things, but using them, using your time, using everything you have going on for you to set yourself up for better success in the future, both on and off the mat? I'm curious how you stay focused and committed to so many things.
Right. Yeah. That's a really, really good question. I think that for me, balance has always been huge and really important for my life. I can't I don't think when I'm in the training room, when I'm wrestling, when I'm in practice, or when I'm studying film or something and locked in, it's very serious, very locked in. Obviously I'm enjoying it and I'm having fun because I'm passionate about it, but I'm not really I'm locked in and I'm using all my energy and focus towards that. You know what I mean? So for me, it's really not sustainable to do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where I have that type of intensity, and focus on one thing specifically. So when I can get out of the practice room and finish practice, I kind of like to sometimes tone it down a little bit. That's why I love watching The Office and stuff like that.
Right.
And playing board games, working on things that to me aren't as serious like the seasoning, that's more just strictly fun. Wrestling, it's a lot of fun, but it's also really hard.
Yeah.
So that's something where doing the seasoning, there's a lot of work to it and it's a lot of fun, but it's not super stressful.
Yeah.
So I just kind of just like to keep that balance where I can obviously focus my energy in wrestling and do a whole lot in a short period of time because of the intensity that we're at. And then when I'm done with that, just kind of unwind and be able to do things that, maybe aren't as stressful. It's not that I don't take them as seriously, but they're just not as difficult, I guess is the way I look at it.
Yeah, I'm the same way because, I got to deal with clients and I have to deal with my team all day long, 24/7. But when I go to our new property and I'm able to just hop on the tractor and get some work done, it's such a nice disconnect that helps me to reset so that the time I spend working and what I'm doing, it feels like it's more fruitful because I've taken a step back to reset. So it sounds like for you, business and keeping yourself busy is a nice way to reset from that day-to-day grind of, like you said, you can only do it so much in one day where it could become counterproductive. And I know one other thing that I want to talk to you about that you keep yourself busy with. You somehow this is the kind of life I want to live sometimes. You kind of last minute get invited to a trip overseas with Jorge Masvidal to go as a wrestling training partner. Yeah. And that was so awesome to watch just as a fan of MMA and wrestling, to see those worlds collide. What was that experience like?
Man, it's amazing. I definitely live just such a blessed and fortunate life to where I have the opportunity to do something like that. Being able to go out there and help Masvidal get ready for that fight was just such an awesome experience. And being able to, it was just a crazy sequence of events because it was maybe Friday afternoon that I had seen that Gilbert Burns had withdrawn from the fight, and then I was like, oh man, George is probably going to get the fight. So I called our manager, and he was like, can you get to Miami? I was like, no, I can't get to Miami, but I can get to Vegas. And he was like, okay. So that was Saturday night. My fiance and I drove out to Pittsburgh. I hopped on a flight to Vegas at 7 a.m. on Sunday, and I got there at 11 in the morning, and then went straight to a hotel and quarantined and got tested twice. And then the next day, so Monday, we hopped on a private jet and flew to Abu Dhabi. So it's this is the most insane
right, just fly to Vegas, fly to Abu Dhabi. It's wild.
Yeah, it was just wild, and it was such a fun experience. I mean, with COVID and with all the restrictions that we had, while I was there, I didn't really get to do much, but we stayed in this awesome 5-star hotel and just trained, and it had a racetrack running through it. So every morning I would just get up and go have an espresso and like order room service and sit outside and like watch race cars drive by.
That's
Like,
amazing.
it was crazy. Yeah, it was so awesome and fun, and obviously wish George would have got the dub, but you know, he really, we had been training with him for a bit, and when they announced that Burns was fighting Usman, then I wasn't training with him anymore. So, you know, he was really, you know, 6 days notice. And a lot of people say, oh, he was training, he was ready. Like, he was for a time period, but then it was like over a month off.
Yeah.
So like, it wasn't really, you know, I would love to see them rematch with him in a full camp, because, you know, I had a lot of people saying nice things to me about his takedown defense. And if you watch the fight back, he honestly did really, really well with his wrestling and grappling and stuff. So he's a guy that learns quickly, and I would love to work with him more. He's actually, you know, hopefully going to be coming up to the gym, you know, when we do open up and train in here. So I think that, you know, he could definitely, you know, if him and Usman were to rematch, it would be a different fight. But yeah, it was an awesome experience. It was so cool just to have the opportunity to do that. And, you know, hopefully moving forward, I'll have more chances to go do that for guys and help them train, and then eventually have my own fights and be prepping for those.
I was just going to say, I got to imagine, not that you need more excitement, but I got to imagine that kind of stokes the fire for you for your MMA career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the whole, you know, build up to the fight, the lead up to it, the training, and then post fight, the lifestyle of you know, being able to focus and train for 8 weeks, and then, you know, you do your competition, and then you celebrate, and then back to it, is just such a cool lifestyle to live. You know, there's a lot of freedom there where, you know, you do have your time to obviously focus up and train and go super hard, and then you also have time to just enjoy the fruits of your labor and your life, and be able to, you know, spend time with family and friends and stuff like that. So I love the lifestyle that it brings, and the training is so fun, just like being able to learn new things. You know, for me, I've been wrestling about 20 years, so being able to like do a different combat sport and learn the ins and outs of it is so fun. But yeah, I'm definitely incredibly excited to move into MMA, and I just know that I'm going to excel really, really quickly, just because of all the different character traits and things that wrestling has instilled in me, and that I've learned from my coaches and my teammates over the years. You know, I just know, like, when I get into that world, I'm going to the top very quickly. So, you know, I'm not really in a rush to get it started, but I know that once it does start up, it's going to happen really fast. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's always new, fun to start new things. I mean, for me, it's like these last couple of years of grilling and smoking nonstop. Yeah. It has just been such a fun time to learn something new and kind of get lost in it. And I can sense that excitement for you. And with what wrestling's doing right now in MMA is just seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's an easy transition. It's almost like obvious to me. So, you know, it's very, very fun. And I think, like, you know, the way that I move and my athletic ability and a lot of the things that I do transition very well to fighting, you know. So that's just super, super exciting, super fun. Learning new things is always good, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And for those listening who haven't listened to the last time Bo came on the podcast, him and Anthony Ashnault came on to talk about their training down in Miami. And they go into detail. You can hear Ashnault talk about how he just wants to knock people out and what they're working on. Listen to that. Bo, listen, I know you got some more wedding planning to do. I know you got a lot of stuff to do, so thanks for taking a few minutes. Make sure to send me some of those seasonings, because I'm going to throw a nice tomahawk on the steak, and I'm going to give it my best shot.
Yep, you'll be the first one with it. So thanks, Justin. I appreciate you having me on today.
Awesome. We'll talk soon, man. See ya. And that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you did enjoy this episode of the podcast, be sure to leave a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more episodes. For more wrestling content, be sure to follow Baschamania on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow me. I'm at JBash on Instagram and at JustinJBash on Twitter. I'll be back with another episode shortly. See ya.
And the beat goes on. It goes on. It goes on. It goes on. It goes on.